Yo, it's your boy Bess, and welcome to part one of my new 8-part series called Divisional DNA with Bess. In this series, I'll be breaking down each division by recapping each team's season and previewing each team's offseason. All right, today we're doing the NFC East. This is the Washington Commanders, New York Giants, Dallas Cowboys, and Philadelphia Eagles. So before I get into anything, as always, I want to thank God for waking me up this morning, allowing me to talk about sports, which is something that I love to do. Without him, I would not be here right now. So let's go ahead and get this thing started with the worst team in the division this year. That was the New York Giants. All right, the New York Giants were 4-13 this year. But when you look at that record, you're thinking, okay, this team was trash, right? But if you look closely, this team lost 8 one-possession games, right? So those are 8 games that you can say was pretty 50-50, right? They could have went either way. And if they win 4 of those games, now they're 8-9, So this season could have very well been an 8-9 season because of the one possession losses that they have. This is also a team that, after being 2-8, they fired their head coach Brian Daboll, who had been there for 4 years. Overall, he went 20-40-1. Remember when he first got there with Daniel Jones? They went to the playoffs, and we thought, okay, the Giants about to have something cooking here. But after that, everything went downhill. I truly believe that Brian Daboll, he had his opportunities, don't get it twisted, but Daniel Jones in Indianapolis was not the Daniel Jones in New York. Like, we can say as much as we want to say, because it's a bad look. If you look at Brian Daboll with Daniel Jones, then Daniel Jones move on and becomes, at one point he was in MVP conversations, right, this year with the Colts. It makes Daboll look bad. But Daniel Jones was not this Daniel Jones in New York. Now, Shane Steichen, the head coach for Indianapolis, deserves a lot of credit, but let's keep it a buck. This was not the Daniel Jones that we were seeing in New York. So Daboll finally got his quarterback, his guy, the guy he drafted in Jackson Dart. And when Jackson Dart played not even half the season, that's when they ended up firing Brian Daboll. Mind you, through this season, Malik Neighbors got hurt. Cam Scatterboo got hurt. So we never got to see the full offense in effect. The first game Jackson Dart actually started, that's the game Malik Neighbors went down. And we all know Malik Neighbors is the top 10 receiver in this league. So without your number one receiver, and then without your number one running back in Cam Scatterboo, who also got hurt in October, Wan'Dale Robinson was nice. Don't get it twisted. But if I have Wan'Dale Robinson as my number one receiver, a lot of things can't really shake on this offense. So going into this year, as I mentioned, Jackson Dart, their rookie quarterback, they did what the Texans did a couple years ago. The Texans said, you know what, we're going to get Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud, get two most important positions in football, in my honest opinion. In today's game, the quarterback and edge rusher position is the most important. And the Texans, they said, okay, C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson. They got their two staple players, and look at who they are now. Now they are a yearly playoff team because they have that edge rusher and that quarterback. Well, the Giants did the same thing this year. And went and got Abdul Carter, who I thought was going to be a generational talent off rip, right? And this year he started off slow, had some behavioral issues. I've heard from a lot of Giants fans that he was getting sat in the first quarter because of things he was doing behind closed doors and meetings, just being childish or whatever, being late to meetings, whatever it was, right? But then at the end of the season, you kind of saw a spark from Abdul Carter over those last couple of games. But then they also went and got Jackson Dart, who this year showed flashes. And with what he had, I was impressed with the flashes that he showed. I'm on record to say Jackson Dart was going to be the best quarterback in this draft. And I'm not wrong yet. Cam Ward, you could say, had a better season than Jackson Dart, but I do think that argument is still up for debate moving forward. Like, it's not going to take a lot for Jackson Dart to become the best QB in that draft class, especially with the moves the Giants have made already, right? We're talking about going into this offseason, but John Harbaugh already has been hired as the head coach for the New York Giants. We know what John Harbaugh brings to this team. This is a Super Bowl champion head coach, and with the Ravens, in 18 seasons, he went 180 and 113, right? So he's a winning head coach, period. No matter how that Ravens tenure ended, we know he's a winning head coach. Also, in those 18 seasons, there was 12 playoff appearances. So we know that he brings that playoff feel to your team. When he's your head coach, you have that feeling, and you can make a nice little run into the postseason. And I don't see why the Giants shouldn't feel like that, because they have a great D-line with Brian Burns, who was top 5 in sacks this year. Abdul Carter, who I expect to make a big jump next year. Dexter Lawrence, one of the best interior D-linemen in the league. Still got Kayvon Thibodeau in that mix, right? And then also offensively, you have your QB in Jackson Dart. And this year, the hope is that Malik Neighbors and Cam Scatterboo isn't ready for game one, well, week one, right? More so Cam Scatterby because they've already seen him running around the facility. But Malik Neighbors, he already came out and said, look, if I'm not 100%, I'm not going to go. And that's smart on his part. But I can't wait to see Dart with those two. Now, this team does still have some holes moving forward. Looking at the offseason, they have to address the offensive line because although Dart did not play the full season, and was with 14 games, right? He was sacked the 11th most times in the league. So that means that pressure was on him constantly. And that could be the fact that, look, nobody's getting open. So I'm holding the ball a little longer than I should, and he's getting sacked, or it could just be the O-line was terrible, right? So I do think they need to address the offensive line. They have the 5th pick in the draft. If I'm the Giants, low-key, I'm not mad at looking at a possible scenario where I call the Rams and I say, hey, look, do y'all want this pick? You have 2 first-round picks. I can get the Rams 2 first-round picks and trade this 5th pick because I have my star edge rusher. I have my QB. Now I just need to fill in pieces like the offensive line, maybe a secondary a little bit, or they can keep this pick and go with the receiver. So it's a lot they can do with this pick. Either they can trade it, get 2 picks, you can get 2 first-round caliber players, 2 top 32 players, because that's essentially what you're doing in the draft, right? You're trying to get 2 of the top 32 players in the draft in the first round. You could do that if you trade that pick back, or you can say, you know what, let's get a Carnell Tate. Put Carnell Tate beside Malik Neighbors. Now we have fireworks on offense with Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterby, right? Or you can give the offensive lineman, help that offensive line out, and give Dart more time to get the ball to his receivers. But this Giants team, to me, I think has some dark horse vibes moving forward. I would not be shocked if this team does squeak into the playoffs or miss the playoffs by a game or 2. I would not be shocked at all. Next up, we have the Washington Commanders, who finished 3rd in the division. They were 5-12 this year, and in large part, I don't think I really got to go into depth this year about this team because Jaden Daniels was not healthy. Jaden Daniels was off the field more than he was on the field. Therefore, 5-12 is, it's kind of self-explanatory. This is a team that had high hopes going into this past season because the year before this past year, they was in an NFC championship. Jaden Daniels' first year in the league, he took this team. Like, think about it. He took the second worst team because the draft order goes worst team to best team, right? He was the number 2 pick. He took the number 2 for the second worst team in the league and took them to the NFC Championship. When you look at that roster that year, it wasn't that great. So going into this year, you had to assume, okay, we're going to get a little better. At worst, we're going to get a little better. And we can have, championship ceiling because we have Jaden Daniels, who's proven he can take a lesser team to the championship game. But this year, of course, he could not stay on the field. This team this year, the problem to me wasn't just Jaden Daniels not being out there, but also their defense got significantly worse than what it was the year prior. And I don't think their defense was that good in 2024, but listen to these numbers in 2024 compared to 2025, all right? In 2024, they were top 5 in points scored per game on offense. So Jaden Daniels shows you he can put up numbers. And mind you, that offense, outside of Terry McLaurin, who do they really have, right? So you had that, but the defense was playing average. They were 15th in points allowed per game. They was allowing 23 points per game. They was 13th in yards allowed per game. They was at 328, right? So this defense was pretty mid, but the offense was so good. This year, there was essentially no offense because Jaden Daniels was not healthy. But defensively, they were 27th in points allowed per game, which was 26.5. It was almost average, allowing 30 points per game, right? And it was 32nd in yards allowed per game, 384 yards allowed per game. It was dead last when it came up to giving up yards. I play fantasy. If y'all play fantasy, y'all know if your receiver or running back played the Commanders defense, you was excited because that was essentially a 20-point game just off rip because that's how bad the Commanders defense worked. So, going into this offseason, you have to get the defense a little bit better. And to me, low-key, if I can't fix this bad defense in one offseason, I'm going to just load up the offense. That's my mindset. But they can't, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so if it's me, I'm thinking, all right, Jaden Daniels, I just told y'all, 2 years ago when he was fully healthy his rookie year, there was top 5 in points per game. I would say if I'm the Commanders GM, let's just outscore everybody. Because we can't fix this defense in one offseason. I don't think we can, right? But you can definitely up the offense up, like get more receivers, get more running backs, and make this offense more explosive so you can outscore everyone. But it can't happen. And this is why. Cliff Kingsbury, offensive coordinator for the Commanders, let go. Right? Actually, he walked away. He left the team. And I'm about to tell you why. Okay, this is a quote from Grant Paulson on 106.7 The Fan. He said that he was told that Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury disagreed over several things. Dan Quinn, the head coach for the Commanders, once again, Cliff Kingsbury, offensive coordinator, disagreed over several things. The run-pass balance being high on that list of disagreements. He said it also seemed like Dan Quinn has a different vision for Jaden Daniels. Okay, so essentially, the moral of the story is Dan Quinn wants to preserve Jaden Daniels. Last year, a couple of Jaden Daniels injuries were, him running the football, right? And Dan Quinn does not want that. He does not want the ball in Jaden Daniels' hands as much because he knows Jaden Daniels is, it looks like he's made of glass almost, right? So Cliff Kingsbury, he wants a college-style offense. Once again, the year prior, they was top 5 in points per game, right? So he wants that high pace, that college style offense for the Commanders, but Dan Quinn doesn't want that to preserve Jaden Daniels. So this year they bring in David Bowe, who was the assistant QB coach for the Commanders. So he was already on the staff, and he is bringing a more balanced attack, a more under center kind of attack to preserve Jaden Daniels. And I mean, you can do that, but to me, you're not getting the best of Jaden Daniels, in my opinion. And if you're going to go that route, if you're going to say, okay, we're going to go under center, try to slow things down, preserve Jaden Daniels, take the ball out of his hands, you got to have a defense. And the way things look this year, you do not have a defense. I do not think that one draft pick can change how bad that defense was. This defense doesn't have any playmakers on it. I mean, also it could be, there was no offense, so the defense was on the field more. The offense could have affected that a little bit. But I do think that his defense just wasn't that good. I do think that one thing that I have heard through the grapevine is that Quay Walker, linebacker for the Packers, is on the Commanders' radar in free agency. And he's a pretty good linebacker that you can bring in to at least start building up a stout defense. But with pick number 7 in the draft, once again, if it's me, I'm not dialing back on Jaden Daniels. I want him to put up top 5 points per game numbers like he did his first year. I would bring in another receiver. I would help with the O-line a little bit if I have to, but I would go to another receiver to give him another weapon outside of Terry McLaurin. Because outside of Terry McLaurin, who they really have to throw the ball to? Like that to me, and the fact that Jaden Daniels was able to operate without a legit number 2 his first year, imagine what he can do with a legit number 2 his third year, right? So I would just say, look, we're going to outscore everybody. Period, point blank. We did it a couple years ago. We can do it again. That's how I would go about it. But I do understand Dan Quinn's, his want to, preserve Jaden Daniels. I can understand both sides of it. But this team is 5th in cap space this offseason. So I'm expecting them to go heavy in free agency. I'm expecting them to make sure they can help that defense out, right? Because to me, free agency, go defense. In that draft, get you a receiver in the first round. Try to, create fireworks with this offense. That's what I would do at least if I am the Commanders. But this is a team, like I said, once you get a taste of success, you got to get back to it, right? You can't just have this season knowing what Jaden Daniels can do and then never get back there, right? And I mean, the elephant in the room is Jaden Daniels. Can he stay healthy? Can he stay on the field? He got hurt like 4 times this year, and it was all different areas of the body, so it's scary because there was also another quarterback in Washington who had injury problems, and we all thought that he had a high ceiling, and we thought the Commanders could make a run to the Super Bowl, and his name was RG3, and look at how that turned out. So you're just hoping and praying and wishing that if you're a Washington Commanders fan, this is a deja vu. That's what you're hoping, because that would be very unfortunate to go from RG3 to QB struggles to Jaden Daniels, and then it's the same thing that happened with RG3. I do believe that this Commanders team, the ceiling is high because we've seen what they can do, but it all comes down to Jaden Daniels, and it also comes down to this defense. Can this defense get just a little bit better than it was last year? They'll be good to go. All right, y'all. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys, who were 7-9-1 this year, finished second in the NFC East. All right, this is a team that last year offensively was beautiful, right? Dak Prescott had one of his best seasons. CeeDee Lamb had the dropsies every now and then, but him and George Pickens was a great dynamic duo. Javonte Williams revived his career in this Dallas offense. But we all know what the problem was. It was the defense. There was no big D in Dallas. All right. The defense to me was just poor from top to bottom. And when you trade Micah Parsons, you see, because they started the season off with a bang. Let's start there, right? When they traded Micah Parsons away for some first round picks, you see Micah Parsons elevates any defense that he goes to. And this is what I meant a couple of segments ago when I talked about the Giants. When you get a edge rusher on your squad, your defense is going to get better, right? That's why I think edge rusher is the second most important position in football. Because if you have one of them ones, that can affect your whole entire defense, all right? So Micah leaving, the defense got worse. And clearly he was keeping together a pretty poor defense. So to me, this Dallas Cowboys team this offseason, defense, defense, defense. That's what they have to be thinking going into this offseason. One thing about this team is that this year, right, they made good moves. Micah Parsons traded him away. And I was one of the ones that said, oh, I don't know who won this trade. I can't guarantee the Packers won this trade. And unfortunately, Micah Parsons got hurt during this season towards ACL. And let's just say Micah Parsons don't come back the same. Because we all know what his calling card is. It is his speed, his explosiveness, his ability to bend the corner whenever he's rushing against tackles. If he loses that speed, if he loses that, athleticism that he had, then Micah Parsons is not Micah Parsons. And if that's what the Packers have now, and they gave up first round picks for him, then the Cowboys clearly won this trade, right? The Cowboys already put some of these picks to work because they traded for Quinnen Williams, right? And they actually traded next year's first round pick, not this upcoming draft, but next draft first round pick and this year's second round pick. So they have Quinnen Williams already from that Micah Parsons trade, and they still have 2 first round picks this year, right? Being 12 and 20. Pick 12 is theirs. Pick 20 belongs to the Packers. So going into this draft, I'm thinking, hey, defense. That's what I would do at least, because this defense doesn't have, outside of Micah Parsons, where are the playmakers? Where are the difference makers, right? On the 3-Man Week podcast that we streamed yesterday, I talked about C.J. Allen being a guy that Dallas should want. And they already had a meeting with him. C.J. Allen, Georgia Bulldogs middle linebacker. This is a guy that can come to this defense, and you have a star on the D-line. Now you got a star in the second level, which is C.J. Allen. One guy I didn't even mention is Kenny Clark, right? So your interior defensive line is pretty stout. So you bring a middle linebacker in, that run defense should be amazing. Should be, at least. So I think I would do that. And then with pick 20, you can go anybody in the secondary, right? Because this secondary, once again, where are the playmakers? They just don't have that anymore. And also, without Micah Parsons, the secondary got exposed because now there's really no pass rush, right? So these secondary players got to cover a lot longer than they had to previously, and they got shredded last year. So to me, in this draft, right, once again, they have 2 first-round picks. They don't have a second-round pick or a third-round pick. The third-round pick went to the Steelers for George Pickens, and the second-round pick went to the Jets for Quinnen Williams, right? So they already put these picks to use. Got 2 pretty good players, right? Pretty elite level players with George Pickens and Quinnen Williams. Now you can flip these 2 first-round picks for elite players. Think about it. The Cowboys clearly would have won this trade with Micah Parsons if they can go ahead and hit on these 2 first-round picks. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do with that. But the Cowboys, they want Javonte Williams back. That's a guy whose contract is up this year. And George Pickens is a guy we're all waiting to see what happens. Because George Pickens, as of right now, the Cowboys want to franchise tag him. Just a little quick news for y'all. The last time the Cowboys worked out a long-term deal with the first-time franchise eligible player was Dez Bryant, right? So since Dez Bryant, they have not given a receiver a long-term deal on their first franchise tag eligibility, right? So I think that getting George Pickens back is going to be huge because this offense, the ceiling will remain the same. The ceiling will remain, hey, we can put up 40 points if we want to, because Dak Prescott is that good, especially in regular season at least. So I think that this team, it's there. The formula is there. Hit on these 2 first-round picks with defensive players. Make the defense just a little better, because they was losing games last year because they was getting outscored. But you have an offense that is easily a top 5 offense in the league. So if you make this defense a little bit better, right, kind of like the Commander situation in a way, make this defense a little bit better, and this Cowboys team can be a force next year. Like there's, no doubt about it. 100% this team could be a problem next year for sure if they can just fix this defense. And I think it's pretty easy to do when you got 2 top 20 picks. All right. I expect one of them to be CJ Allen for sure, or at least the best linebacker available. I think CJ Allen the best linebacker this year. But if you don't get him, make sure you get a linebacker and get somebody in that secondary. And you're cooking with something in Dallas. All right. And last but not least, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, who did win this division this year with an 11-6 record. All right. On this Eagles team this year, it was a failure. Let's just keep it a buck. With the expectations that this team had, especially from me. I'm the Jay Hurts guy. For those of y'all that don't know me or haven't seen my shows in recent history, I am a Jay Hurts guy. And the expectation this year was for Jay Hurts to go back-to-back and give him 2 rings. But this year they fell short. And it was more so internal than external, right? It was a lot of problems within the Eagles than outside the Eagles. What I mean by that is the Eagles were the best team on paper this year, period, point blank. Every time they stepped on the field, they was better than whoever stepped on the field. I don't care who it was. They were the best team in the league this year. And nobody can't tell me otherwise. But I do think that because of all the internal battles that they had, you can't enter a war and you fighting your own team. You can't do that, right? And that started from the jump. This team started off hot, right? They was winning, and I want to get y'all the exact record that they had early. Coming off a rip, they had beat the Cowboys, they beat the Chiefs, they beat the Rams, they beat the Bucks, and then they lost to the Broncos. So it was 4-1. And then they lost to the Giants 4-2, and then they got to the Vikings. All right. So to me, after that 4-2 start is when AJ Brown started chirping, started talking about, him not getting the ball. We've seen things happening this year with AJ Brown in terms of him going on Twitch, which is a streaming platform, and saying, look, if you drafted me in fantasy, don't start me because I'm not going to get the ball. That's basically what he was saying. Right. This is a guy that year before was reading books on the sideline. Right. So AJ Brown is clearly about himself. And you would think last year, after he was reading books, called out the passing game, which is essentially calling out Jalen Hurts, they won a ring. You would think, he's good. But then this year, when they're on top of the league, beating these good teams early in the season, he's chirping. And that to me shows that, okay, winning is clearly not your priority. Clearly, you want to be that guy with 10 catches and with 100 yards, or that 10 catches, 120 in a loss. And that's exactly what happened because he was chirping early. And then the Eagles started going down this road. They started losing some games, right? He lost to the Cowboys, lost to the Bears, lost to the Chargers. And in all of these games, I'm going to tell y'all what A.J. Brown's stat line was. A.J. Brown, 8 catches, 110, and a touchdown against the Cowboys. They lost that game. Mind you, A.J. Brown, nothing. Didn't say anything after that game. The next game they lost was to the Bears. Guess what A.J. Brown numbers were? 10 catches, 132, 2 touchdowns. Not a word said. All right, very next game against the Chargers. They lost that game in overtime. A.J. Brown, 6 catches, 100 yards. Didn't say nothing. This is a guy that I truly believe ruined the flow of this team. This team was winning games, and it was ugly. Don't get it twisted. Jalen Hurts was not playing his best football, but they were winning. And that was the DNA of this team. They're going to get it done. No matter how they want to beat. They can beat you special teams. They can beat you offensively. They can beat you defensively. That's exactly what they're going to do. Because early in the season, we saw examples of that. We saw them beat the Chiefs in an ugly game. We saw them beat the Rams in a big game where they came back offensively and won the game on special teams. We saw a lot of examples of how they can win games. And then A.J. Brown started chirping. And clearly, Kevin Patullo said, let's get A.J. Brown the ball. Let's get him the ball. Nick Sirianni clearly stood by it. Let's get A.J. Brown the ball. They started force-feeding them, and they started losing games. So that, to me, you just ruined the flow of the team, right? You ruined the scheme of the team because now instead of Jalen Hurts just winning games, which is what they were doing early, now I'm force-feeding A.J. Brown, and that's causing problems. Once again, I'm not excusing Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts had a lot of games this year where I was scratching my head. You can ask my family. I'm sitting in the house scratching my head, bro. What are you doing? You're better than this. Right. But if there is an internal cancer inside your locker room that's clearly ruining the flow of the team, you got to do something about it. So this offseason, I'm expecting to hear breaking news. A.J. Brown is traded from the Eagles. I'm expecting that. I'm not going to keep running it back with somebody who will keep ruining the flow and ruining the vibes in my locker room, right? And on top of that, like I think AJ Brown to me was the main problem because things didn't go left until you started chirping. Kevin Patullo, and I hear this from Eagles fans. There's not one Eagles fan that said Kevin Patullo was a good coach. You know, we make these narratives. We say, oh, this coach is good, this coach is bad, this coach is good. And normally there's guys on both sides of the argument, right? When I say a coach is good. For example, Mike Tomlin, right? We talk about some people say he's a good coach, some people say he's not, right? So Nick Sirianni, some people say he's good, some people say he's not, right? It's a lot of people that, you know, go split decisions when it comes to coaches. Well, there is no 50-50 with Kevin Patullo. Every single Eagles fan has told me that Kevin Patullo is not good at calling plays. Every Eagles fan that watched every single game tells me the offense is broken, right? So you had a receiver that was just complaining. The offensive coordinator didn't know what he was doing. And then you had injuries, right? Lane Johnson and Landon Dickerson, every time I looked up, they was hurt. And the offensive line was not the same. Therefore, the run game was not the same. I kid you not, Saquon Barkley was getting hit in the backfield like no other running back this season. I saw it way too many times where as soon as he gets the ball, he gets hit. And everybody wanted to say, oh, Saquon fell off or Saquon's washed. No, the offensive line is not blocking like they were last year. And losing Mekhi Becton was huge, right? But majority of that problem was Lane Johnson and Landon Dickerson being in and out of the lineup, especially Landon Dickerson. Landon Dickerson, he was in and out the lineup all the time. Like Lane Johnson didn't get hurt till like mid to late season, but Landon Dickerson, every time I looked up, he was limping off the field or he was in one play, out the next play, you know? So injuries, drama, and bad coaching is what ruined this season, right? Don't get it twisted. Jalen Hurts did not have that great of a year. But in a year that we say Jalen Hurts did not have a good year, his numbers look very similar, or at least looked a little worse than a quarterback that we said had a good year. Okay, I'm about to read these two stat lines real quick. 3,200 passing yards with 33 combined touchdowns and 6 interceptions. That was Jalen Hurts. Okay, on the flip side, it was Josh Allen. 3,600 passing yards, 39 combined touchdowns with 10 interceptions. That's a better season, but it's not a big gap between those two seasons. But one quarterback is praised for having a great season. One quarterback, we're saying, oh, you had a terrible season. So Jay Hurts did not have a terrible season. And all the Jay Hurts haters will tell you in a heartbeat, oh, he got exposed this year, or he's not good, when his numbers were not that much worse than the number 1, number 2 quarterback in the league. So the Jalen Hurts hate, you know, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say he played at an MVP level this year, because he didn't. He didn't even play. To me, if we're just going based on the 2025 season alone, then he probably didn't make the top 10 when it comes to his season, right? But that doesn't mean he had a terrible season to where we're saying he's terrible, right? And that's the conversation right now. So to me, this Eagles team, you know, it's pretty simple, bro. If you get rid of A.J. Brown, I promise you, things will get solved in this offense. You know, I'm looking at an offense that still has Devontae Smith, still has Saquon Barkley, still has Dallas Goedert, still has a solid O-line, still got Jalen Hurts. If I lose A.J. Brown, I'm not saying just lose them and then don't make a move. When you lose A.J. Brown, whatever you get back for him in terms of draft picks or whatever draft pick you have right now, go get a receiver to replace him. We've seen many rookie receivers come in and take over the league. We've seen many receivers, because I think that, to me, is the easiest position to draft, right? I done said it for 3 teams during the show. I said it for the Giants. They could get a receiver, right? Or trade back, get a receiver and offensive lineman. That's what I said. Or the Commanders could get a receiver, or the Eagles get a receiver in the draft, right? Because this is a position that easily translates. A lot of the best receivers in the league are young. Look at Malik Neighbors first year, Jamar Chase first year, Justin Jefferson first year, Puka Nacua first year. Like all these receivers that JSN didn't really blossom until this year because he was behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett for the first 2 years. But a lot of these receivers that are pretty good, they was good early. Like it didn't take them a long time to develop. Like receivers, to me, can translate. So if I'm the Eagles, get rid of A.J. Brown, go draft a receiver, right? And you're good. You're in the same spot that you was in, essentially. I'm not saying A.J. Brown is replaceable, like easily replaceable. I'm not saying that. I think he's a good receiver, but he's not what you need if you are the Eagles at this moment. All right, y'all, to end this episode today and to end every episode in this series, I will be reading questions from my viewers, all right? All of these viewers came from TikTok. They all sent me these questions to answer during this series, and this is for the NFC East of course. All right. First question came from Willie Jackson off of TikTok. He said, "What do you think about the Commanders' fall off?" Like I said earlier in the show, it's simple. Jaden Daniels not being healthy. This team, to me, is not that much better or that much worse than what it was his rookie year. So to me, with Jaden Daniels, you have to only assume that he can take a average to below average team and elevate them to a ceiling of the NFC Championship. Like I can only go based off of what I've seen, right? And because he was not healthy this year, I mean, what did you expect? Like I didn't. I'm going to see this year. I didn't think they'll make the playoffs just because I think they're better teams in the conference. But if they would have made the playoffs, I wouldn't have been shocked because we just seen it happen, right? So to me, the fall off this year was just Jaden Daniels being hurt. Because as long as he's on the field, they have a chance to win. He's one of those kind of quarterbacks that if he's on the field, he elevates whoever is on the field with him. That's like I said, I'm only going based off of what I've seen in year one. So to me, the fall off is not, it's not a, Jaden Daniels got worse. It's not a, this team is just much worse than it was the year before. No, it's simply Jaden Daniels was hurt this year. So that is that first question. The second question is Gavin. Gavin from TikTok asked me for a prediction from the Giants. All right, for the Giants. Sorry. Like I said, this is giving me dark horse vibes, man. This past year, going into the year, I have some good news for Giants fans out there, so you might want to listen up, because I had the Patriots as one of those dark horse teams. I said they could be anywhere from 7-10 to about 10-7, and they could be a team that squeezes into the playoffs. They could be a team that either misses the playoffs by a game or get in the playoffs by a game. And I'm getting that same vibe from the Giants. Now, with the Patriots, they over exceeded my expectations and they got to the Super Bowl. But for the Giants, I'm putting them in that same boat. Not saying they're going to get to the Super Bowl, but I think they are a team that can make the playoffs by a game or miss the playoffs by a game. I like the way they built this team, and I like what they could do with that fifth pick, whether it's trading for the Rams 2 first-round picks or just making their pick at 5. I'm cool with that. As long as they're healthy, as long as Malik Neighbors is healthy, as long as Cam Skadden is healthy, we have yet to see what this team can do with all of those guys on the field. And with that defensive line, I'm expecting them to wreak havoc because I'm expecting Abdul Carter to take that next step, which means Brian Burns, who's already a made man, is going to get his pressure. Dexter Lawrence, already a made man, going to get his pressure. Abdul Carter, if he takes that next step, then this defensive line is going to be unblockable, right? And with the defensive line like that, that helps the secondary. So the secondary don't got to be crazy good. They just got to be able to be ready for that ball because that ball going to come out. And you got to be ready to make a play on it or to pick it off. So to me, this team is built to win games. And you're bringing in a coach with John Harbaugh who knows how to win games. So I'm excited for this Giants team. I think they had the best coaching hire, and I'm expecting this Giants team to make a lot of noise this upcoming year. Next, last but not least, MDK from TikTok asked me, will the Giants be good next year? Great coach and offensive coordinator. Once again, kind of what I said a couple seconds ago. Yes, I do believe the Giants team will be good. I think the Giants team, like I said, this is a team that can easily go from, and I'm not going to say they're going from worst to first. I think this Eagles team is the best team in the conference. I think this Eagles team is still the best team in the league. Like, I'm not going to change my mind about the Eagles, but this Giants team, man, I would not be shocked if they get in the playoffs. And that's just keeping it real. Like, I would not be shocked if this Giants team make a nice little run and be that 7th seed in the playoffs next year. All right. But that is it from part 1 of Divisional DNA with Jay Bess. Expect part 2 to come soon. Part 2 will be the NFC North. Actually, I'm going to go to the AFC. Let's do the AFC East, all right? The AFC East will be in part 2. And until then, man, y'all stay blessed. Also, please check out all my social media accounts at the bottom of the screen. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Please check that out. Also, go follow. And if you like what you saw today, please hit that subscribe button and share it with your friends and your family. But like I said, until I see y'all next time, much love. Stay blessed. I'm out.
Yo, they feeling like in 7, leave a comment down below. Yo.